Welcome to the Sisters of the Moon podcast, conversations about change with wisdom keepers from around the world, mystics who serve as spiritual midwives to support our global family through this time of chaos, crisis, and initiation. I'm your host, Tanishka the Moon Woman, and we're glad you could join us for insights that penetrate the dark, transforming pain into empowerment. We welcome you, your kin, and your ancestors back to the Moon Lodge, the sacred hub of community where we gather to distill our wisdom. I'm literally speechless. I cannot find the words to say how I feel about these two women that are gathered with us today. If you don't know who they are, I don't know, you must have been under a rock the last 30 years. With me, I have who I consider to be the pioneers of the Red Tent global movement. And the three of us have never had a public conversation. This is the first time. It's such a joy to have you here, ALISA Starkweather and DeAnna Lam.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I realized, looking at our bios, collectively we have 100 years of experience empowering women, which that in itself is just, an act of beauty. I will put your bios in the description rather than read things about you, but suffice to say, these women have dedicated their lives to the empowerment of the collective feminine, and the body of work that they've both birthed has been absolutely profound. We're all gathered in a virtual Moon Lodge. Welcome to those of you that have tuned in. So I would like to honour that tradition, that practice, by lighting a candle and doing an invocation, and then we'll consult the oracle. So if you have a candle with you, ALISA and DeAnna, I invite you to light that. And as we do, welcoming in the sacred feminine by all her names, knowing that every emanation is divine, is necessary for the whole, and that the mystery of womanhood is a journey into the unknowable, to find all of these aspects, to unify them into a harmonic whole, so we may embody her as vessels. I'd like to welcome in she by all of her names here in this space, and ask that we connect in the one heart of sisterhood across the oceans, across her body, to be here now in the service to the collective feminine, and that this conversation, may it serve every sister who finds her way here in some way. Is there anything that you'd both like to add to this intention?
בואי האם הגדולה, בואי אישה אהובה, בואי רחם הגדולה ורחם היקום, רחם האדמה ורחם האהבה. This is an invocation in my native language, Hebrew, calling her by all her names into the womb of each woman, awakening our wombs to ourselves and to the world.
May we become vessels full of presence, full of story, full of what can support and levy the hearts of humanity in this moment. May anyone that comes to this place to drink from this river, this red river, this sacred feminine river, be fed and nourished and seen and heard wherever you may be coming from. Blessed be.
Blessed be.
Oh, welcome, welcome, welcome. Yeah, beautiful. So we start by consulting the oracle to pull a card for the collective on the understanding that it will be relevant whenever people find this episode, and for this moment in time. Did either of you happen to bring a deck to the show? Because I've pulled a card as well. So
Yeah.
if you have, no matter you have, DeAnna, did you want to pull a card and share that with us?
Let me give it a quick shuffle.
Yeah.
Wow. Schizophrenia.
Mm-hmm.
Mm. Mm.
And do you feel to speak to how that feels relevant at this time for the collective?
So I'll speak while we're looking at how does it feel to be pulled in both directions, to be torn apart by polarities, which we are living in this day.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm seeing the clouds. I'm seeing the clouds of hope underneath.
Mm. Beautiful. ALISA, did you feel to speak to that?
Yeah, it's a startling card to get, and it just right now where we are. Also, it just speaks to like the splits of the worlds, like no one being able to have a sense of reality, a sense of what is really true, and everybody sort of demanding that the part that they know is true, while other people see them and think that's not, you're in an illusion. So yeah, it speaks that way. Thank you.
Oh, beautiful. And yeah, I see equally, I got the message in December, it's the splitting of the worlds. And, you know, we have many prophecies saying that we're going to see two worlds, and you can feel it. It's like we've been straddling these dimensions, one that it's very dense and one that's light filled. And it reminds me of Jim Henson's film in the 80s, The Dark Crystal. And at the end, the mystics and the Skeksis merge and become the one being. And for me, that's the challenge of our times. And the card that I pulled for the collective, so I tend to use this Kali deck that Alana Fairchild created, because for me, red tent is very much a journey with the Dark Mother. And this particular one, Guya Kali, she brings hidden truths and shadows to light, including outdated beliefs and blockages, on the understanding that only through facing our difficult realities can we liberate ourselves. And that, for me, is at the heart of the red tent practice, which this episode is dedicated to speaking about the role of the red tent in these transition times. So it feels like we've already entered that. Yeah, I'd like simply to open that question to you both. I think perhaps I might ask that we define what the red tent is to the three of us. For people that perhaps aren't aware of the practice, would you both like to just speak from the heart, a summary of what you feel the red tent is? Who feels to go first? Yeah. Oh, DeAnna.
Would you like to start, or are you motioning towards me?
I'm motioning towards you.
Thank you. Primarily, the red tent for me is a womb space. It's entering the womb of the mother, it's entering the womb of the woman, it's entering the womb of ourselves. And one thing about the womb that I've learned through the years of holding red tents and being pregnant myself is that the womb is a place where polarities can exist. The womb is where two hearts beat as one, where mother and child have no separation between them, where adversity is contained in, and polarities are contained in space of inclusion. There is nothing that is in the womb that doesn't belong there. There is nothing in the womb that can be thrown out of there. It's all about inclusion. And that's for me what the red tent is about.
Oh, DeAnna, what words of power. I just immediately what surfaced in my consciousness as you spoke was you think about the women that struggle with womb pain, and I was certainly one of them. It speaks to the lack of support to integrate those polarities that create inner conflict. Thank you so much for your wisdom. ALISA, what is red tent to you?
Well, I want to say that this evening I went on a walk when the sun was setting, and I seemed to start my conversation with both of you then. And I was feeling into how DeAnna and I both, one of our last conversations, we both saw the red tent being that womb space and being able to hold humanity in it in a way to come to the sacred feminine. And so where there's been a lot of talk amongst us all, is the red tent primarily just for women, or what is its purpose? But as a womb space, because we all came from the womb, it means that we all have an access to the mother through this very symbolic place. And so when we think in our world, how much has been stripped away of our sovereignty, our leadership, our spirit-based knowing, to have a womb space that we can remember what is where we've come from and what we're held by and what we've always been held by. And then it offers that space to all ages and all stages and humanity, really, in a very real sense, because we've played with that, we've practiced that in all of these many years, like who enters this space. And we find that when people come into this space, there is a deep memory cord. Even people who've never been in a red tent, if you say to them, and I've asked the question, well, you don't know what it is, so you tell me what it is. They have been able to find that without the book, without anything. They've been able to go inside and tell me what the red tent is, having never seen it at all, because it lives somewhere.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
I'm overflowing. I'm just like, how the hell am I going to keep speaking? Like, I'm just feeling so much in my heart for you both. Thank you. Yeah. Whew. Yeah, the remembering. So for me, red tent is also, yes, definitely a womb space. It's understanding that we descend with the cycles, and then we're rebirthed through the cycles. For me, it's part of the ancient mystic traditions, whether you knew them as Kabbalah or Sufism or the Grail, but bowing to the wisdom of the cycles, embodying and distilling the wisdom of the cycles by consciously journeying with them, knowing that it's only the cycles that has any real power over us. And that when we are humble, the word hue is in humility. Hue, the tone hue is of the earth. And when we descend willingly down to our mother, she holds us, she heals us, and we come home to ourselves, so that when we re-emerge from this cocoon, we are more centered, more grounded, clearer, integrated, and that we midwife each other, that it's the sum of all parts that creates the magic of the red tent. And my knowing is that it used to go over 3 days to allow for the 3 stages of transformation: the descent, the initiation, and the integration, or the rebirth. And that if we can give ourselves sacred space, sacred time apart, but in community, in a shared one heart, then we heal. Just like often we receive the wounds in an interpersonal dynamic, like homeopathy, we heal the wound through coming together. So for me, it's intrinsically a community practice. Yeah. Yeah.
It is. It is. Oh.
Yeah. Yeah. So it seems to me we could use some, community is what's going to get us through. I had visions about 20 years ago that, I was shown needing to seed as many red tents as quickly as possible, on the understanding that the women would strengthen, we strengthen our intuition when we gathered together, and we would bring through what we needed to do to adapt and prepare and support each other through these chaotic times. What's your feelings, thoughts around that? Like, Alisa, you've already spoken about, hey, perhaps we need to open this up to include everybody. Like, how do you see the role of Red Tent in this great rebirth? Alisa, would you like to speak to that one first?
Yeah, I want to. I'm so excited to see you both and to have this conversation, because each one of us is holding these very deep memory cords, and by having the conversation we can concur. And so when I think of the red tent right now, well, like just our history, because we've gone through some time now, so we have been able to see that when, like for instance in Buffalo, when they had a shooting, and it was devastating. They didn't know what to do. And so the community came together to raise the red tent and to be able to bring people through that. When someone has gone through something that is as terrible as their body being taken by another person, and how did they return? How did they live forward? The red tent is there, and they come in, and the women are doing the tending. When they're, I think of Zohar, who DeAnna and I both love and know, in Israel, where she brought the Arab women there with the Jewish women inside the red tent. And they had, when I first came into her town, there was a huge banner that was in her town of when the red tent was going to happen, and so the importance of having some place where the women have leadership. They have the ability to say, this is what's needed and this is what we're going to do, so that even in that opening, it is a woman's place in regards to how it is held, in the compassion, in the love, in the tending, that it's not to be taken like, okay, it belongs to all of us. No, it is a woman's space in that way. And that women right now, we need places for this healing to occur. And the red tent when we can't figure out, like, where do we go? And I'll just say for myself, and I'll stop. I am on the precipice of new body of work, and Isadora has just given my daughter and I the stewardship of her large 60-foot red tent. And I think, okay, what's going to happen with this? And I think of now women's council there. I think of important conversations we need to have. I think of us laying our bodies down, the grief work, the rage work. The red tent has definitely a place in where we are and where we're going.
Yeah. I'm seeing a gathering of wisdom keepers, ironically a Black Lodge, and there has already been projects bringing the grandmothers together. But when you spoke women's leadership, that for me, because so much of the schizophrenia, the duality that I see in the world is because the response to the issues is political, and politics is from the mind, and we will never solve anything from the mind. It keeps us in duality, in polarization, in conflict. I'm right, you're wrong, and that we must have the voice of elders, of women of substance, feminine wisdom keepers in the global conversation, which means welcoming them in to our space rather than us trying to, enter the hierarchical halls of power, in which case you have to check your feminine at the door even to gain access. DeAnna, would you want to respond to any of that or add your thoughts on the role of Red Tent in these transition times?
One of the things that I'm touched by in the Red Tent is the fact that it's multi-generational. That in the world outside of the Red Tent, there is a teen center and there is a senior center, and never the two shall meet. There is a separation by age, by profession, by specialization, by however way we can separate each other, we separate each other. And the Red Tent is where there's no separation, like there is no separation in the womb, where girls who started bleeding and women beyond their bleeding times can sit together and share their stories. I remember a tent that we had many years ago where a woman who just lost her baby to a miscarriage was sobbing and being held by a 16-year-old that just herself went through an abortion, whose family could not know about, whose mother did not hear about it because she didn't feel safe sharing this to her mother or to anyone in her family. And here it was, the Red Tent was where they could hold each other and speak their truth and cry together. And that's where we'll heal.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
To me, having a place where we feel safe enough to dissolve, a container, it's like, particularly, we're living in a time where so many families are fractured. There's so much estrangement between mothers and daughters. And yeah, a lot of people are single. And so my understanding is Shakti, the feminine, needs a container. If we don't have a container on a regular basis, then we unravel. And that by weaving together, we are woven, we're held, we're strong. And through feeling that, the wound just naturally comes up. It's like, oh, finally I can be seen. I can journey this because I'm held. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember, it just seems like probably all of us could tell stories of women who've never been inside the Red Tent. They cross the threshold, they sense what's in there, they lay down on the earth, on the ground of it, and without knowing anyone, begin to cry, begin to release, begin to find the thing that has been held, that has been unspoken, that has never been told. And the women know, even without knowing that woman, what to do, how to hold her, how to let her come through. And that has happened so many times. You know, it's just, it has its
because
own.
sorry.
Oh, no.
Because our cells remember, because we have a cellular memory of having been in a red tent. I think if we dig long and deep enough, each of us has indigenous roots, because there is only indigenous people that have inhabited this earth to begin with. So wherever we are, however many generations we have not been indigenous, we have roots in indigenous cultures, and all indigenous cultures had red tents as part of their culture and part of their villages and part of their tribes. So we remember, not in our mind, not in the polarity of the mind, but in the space of the womb, in the space of the blood, in the space of our cycle, in the space of our bones. We remember, we enter, we cross the threshold, like ALISA says, and we remember.
Yeah. And it's, you know, there's, you know, definitions of the red tent that sort of dismiss it, you know, as, oh, there's no recorded historical fact of this practice, it's new age bunk. But when you consider that here we are on different continents, different sides of continents, and we've all remembered at the same time the same practice.
Yes.
Like it's birthed through us, and that's the power of the feminine, that our body remembers. And you know, another huge gift in it is for me the love of sisterhood. You know, that we are each this divine vessel, and that there's so many different types of love to be explored and enjoyed, and that to not have an experience of sisterhood leaves one aching, hungry for something they can't even name. But when you receive it, your life is never the same again. You know, that for me as a maiden, before I found this practice at the age of 26, you know, I was walking dysfunction looking for a place to land. You know, I was so obsessive with my 5 planets in Scorpio, you know, about finding the one, the love object, you know, and this sisterly love is how I've been able to weather every storm in my life since that moment, knowing that I deserve to be loved. And, you know, I still haven't met the person that is my life partner. And I think for all the women that are single out there, you know, it's to know that you can be fiercely loved. I think the love I've felt in the red tent is greater than any love I've known, apart from, you know, parenting. But would you, either of you, feel to speak to that?
Go ahead, ALISA.
Well, again, I reflected on some of your questions, and what I found is that at the core of my life is so much interaction with women in various magical, deep initiatory portals, and the way that we've gone through time, getting scarred by one another and learning how to tell the truth and healing and staying with, staying in a place where we've experienced something, and the thing I love the most about sisterhood is when we get a vision and then we labor on that together, like we physically, whether it's like getting that getting the things and doing the stakes and, like working, getting the water and, whatever it is that we're needing to do, holding the babies. It's like this visceral experience of such deep love affair through time. And so that's what I'm also experiencing, is the relationships through time. Now we're talking like 30, 40, 30, 20, 10 years of time to be able to see who we're becoming and to be able to bring something that has been so desolated and decimated back into its true gift of what sisterhood is, one to the other, because we can, we have so much power together,
Right.
so love, and it's stemming from that love. It's stemming.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that it's utopia or like light. It means like, we've gone to the depths, we've gone through the shadows, we've gone through it and out the other side.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, we broke, and we're putting ourselves together in community.
Yeah.
There is a traditional Jewish saying, "En davar shalem yoter milev shavur." There is nothing more whole than a broken heart. And it is that brokenness that we bring in, because we come broken and we cross the threshold and the breaks are still there. But that's the cracks that Leonard Cohen talks about. That's the cracks where the light comes through. That's what allows the light to come in. And we mend each other's brokenness by being together in this womb space.
Yeah. Yeah. I'd like to bring in, I saw a post the other day that one of the women I trained had shared of another woman. And she said, I don't go to a lot of women's circles unless the facilitator has owned their own internalized, she said patriarchy. For me, I'd probably say internalized misogyny. In other words, that they've done some shadow work, And for me, that's what is intrinsic to the red tents. A lot of people see it first and foremost as a menstrual hut, but for me, your willingness to look at what is taboo, what is your edge, what's scary, what's disowned, what's holding shame or judgment, that which is wounded, that when we go towards our disempowerment, then we transmute it into personal empowerment. And that, I'm currently in Bali, and I love Bali, land of the gods, but there can be a superficial sort of spiritual ambition, which, what I'm trying to say is there can be women's gatherings, women's circles that lack the shadow work, where there can be an unspoken sort of competition of, who's going to be, I don't know, more sexy as a goddess, more sensual. And there's a danger in that, I see. It's like appropriating this, I've got to have the perfect yoga body, the perfect look, it's ego. And that what's intrinsic to this practice is dropping the social mask and allowing yourself to journey into the place that, is taboo. Taboo comes from the Polynesian tapua, meaning sacred power. And that unless we go into that which feels scary for us personally and are witnessed in that, we're not going to claim our sacred power. And that secret and sacred once meant the same thing. So secret women's business, it's about who will hold my secrets, who will witness me in my shame. How do you feel about that sort of, that a women's circle isn't necessarily a red tent, and what distinguishes it, or the role of shadow in the shadow work in the red tent? Like, what's your thoughts on that? DeAnna, would you like to
I
speak?
agree that, yes, I agree that we often come with the internalized patriarchy, with the internalized misogyny that we have grown up in our respective cultures with. And it's not always easy for women, for anyone, for me, to leave it outside the door. So we come and we meet the sacredness, and it's like a mirror that is put in front of our face that shows us the difference, the gap, the distance between what we carry from our upbringing and what's possible in this intimate, sacred space of sisterhood. And I've seen it many times that women come with armor, and there is something so disarming in just being in the space.
Yeah, you said the word intimacy. That to me is it right there. It's a willingness to be truly intimate, to not have that distance, and it's a practice for intimacy with, our beloved in that crucible that brings up the wound more than anything in partnership, that if women have this space where they can process their shadow, they're not going to be projecting it onto their partner as much. ALISA, I know you've done a lot of shadow work. What's your thoughts on the role of that in the red tent? Do you see it as the same?
Yeah, I don't think I can go so direct, so I'll just move around a little bit with it.
However you feel, yeah.
Yeah, so I have a yurt here where I live, and that is the original red tent temple, and it's there existing as a red tent all the time. However, my life has moved in many, many bodies of visionary work. And so having a women's mystery school, having initiations of women in power. So what happens is that I didn't see the red tent movement as the place where this was going to be the depth work, because it was sort of like a introducing or getting people through the door to see what the sacred feminine could offer them. And then it was like, in my case, it was shorter times, like a day or some hours. And so going too deep, like, would leave people fractured and unable to like go back out, or thinking they're going to have this relaxing, nourishing time of being, and then all of a sudden being in something. So that wasn't my place there in that. But it doesn't mean that those things don't happen there. And then I question, because where DeAnna has been so good at training people to facilitate in what I was putting forward, it was like, let's do this in our communities everywhere. And so they were getting shorter amounts of how to do that. So I wouldn't advise like people going to that depths if they couldn't hold that well. But in that, I would say that in terms of what you're bringing up, this idea that we must face our misogyny to really do the deep work around the sacred feminine women. I mean, that is truth. And I have a scar on my wrist where I actually did a piece of work recognizing that inside myself. And it changed, too long to get into with us, but it changed radically what I knew I had internalized. And once I knew that I had internalized misogyny, then I could start to really come into my power, in terms of just being able to understand it's there for all of us. And in those places, shadow work has been essential in regards to really understanding what we're caught in when we come from an idea of being a woman, and what we actually carry in our psyche that can damage us to the point of violence and suicide, and allowing ourselves to be taken down. And so having the ability to know what takes us down, both inside and externally, and not just with patriarchy, because I spent so much of my life focused on dismantling patriarchy and missed until, some years ago, the importance of uh, uh, the secondary oppressive field and system, which was white supremacy. So now it's a both and what I see with that is that women who are still dealing with patriarchal wounds and not feeling enough and feeling shame need so much to come to the forefront of helping with the oppressive system of breaking down and dismantling white supremacy. And it needs to be that now she really does break that patriarchy so that she can stand in the strength needed in herself, because they kind of work together. They're dovetailing right now, and the more we can do that shadow work of finding out how that's keeping us all caught, the more we're going to come into our power as women together.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. For me, I see it as throwing off the robes of colonializing. Like you said earlier, DeAnna, we're all Indigenous. You look at our family tree, it's like, this idea that some of us are and some of us aren't. We're all of the mother, that's our birthright, and that we think we're anything else is the issue. It's the enemy is always within. I saw that all three of us have led 9-month initiation paths or priestess paths, helping women to rebirth themselves, to do that really deep dive work. And I love what you said, ALISA, about not wanting to leave people partway through a process, understanding it takes time to unpack and it takes time to reassemble. I see this role of Magdalene, a keeper of the cyclic wisdom, or an initiator into the mysteries, as a soul midwife. I'd like to know personally what your lives looked like before you found this work, because I know what mine looked like and how dysfunctional I was. And I'm thinking there must have been perhaps a similar for your torches to be ignited in the way they were to, like me, dedicate your lives to this work. Can you, for the women out there who are curious to know how this work found you and how it changed you and shaped you as a woman, as a being? DeAnna, do you want to speak to that?
I shall. I grew up in Israel in an atheistic family, in an atheistic household, so there was no spirituality whatsoever, not only no Judaism, no spirituality at all. The religion was science. The religion of my parents was science. And they always told us, my brother and I, that when we grow up, we will get to choose, but they don't believe in God, and that's how we live our lives. And when I left Israel on my Saturn return to go and live in England, I came upon a women's gathering, which I've never been in a women's gathering before in Israel. I've been to Jews and Arabs together, but co-ed. I've been to many reaching across divides, but it was always co-ed. There was never just women. And I went to a women's gathering, and I was gobsmacked. I don't know if it's a British, do you understand gobsmack, or is it a British expression? To realize that God once was a woman, that to say she and to refer to the divine is something that I can speak. It was until then, there was always a God that I didn't believe in, but I didn't believe in him. It was a he that I didn't believe in. It was a he that didn't exist. And all of a sudden there was a she. And it was a revelation and a soothing of a deepest part of my soul. So that was one component that opened the door. And I'll say just one more thing before I pass on to ALISA the torch. I was in my late 20s, early 30s when I met the person that I'm still living with now, my man of 36 years now. And this is when I realized that I can be held in my cyclicity. It was the first time a man honored my cyclicity. And I started looking into indigenous cultures and how indigenous cultures held menstruation and held the cycles. And he was completely on board with me taking the time off. And what a moment of realization was that when I used to be completely irritable and unhappy and frustrated and sometimes rageful, especially at him because he was the closest one when I was on the first day of my blood or the day before. When I started closing the door and being supported in taking space, I realized I wasn't any irritable anymore because there was no one to be irritable with. There was space. It wasn't about him, it was about me taking space. And that was the next moment of revelation that there was no way back from there.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, I said to ALISA before the call started, I see it as part of a tantric lifestyle, that we have intimacy with the self at the darkest of the moon. So then at the full moon, when we're naturally, the moon is reflecting the most amount of sunlight, we're drawn to our opposite, and that if we don't get that intimacy with the self, which red tent supports, seeing ourselves clearly, that space, we don't create the sort of the vacuum and the magnetism to then want to share ourselves, having found more of ourselves during the darkest lunar phase. Thank you so much for sharing so beautifully that intimate postcard. ALISA, how did life look for you before you found this practice in women's mysteries?
Yeah, I'm going to a moment. Well, I was a teen. I had a child when I was just 17 years old. So that was a huge thing for me. And so by 19, I had gone through a lot by then, and I was actually ready to end my life. And then I thought, no, I can't do that to my son. I mean, I was like ready to go. And so I moved forward in life until I was about, I'd say somewhere like 22, 23, when I had something very hard going on. And I'm not a person who does art, but I had a notebook that had lines on it. And I started to make a woman who was on her knees, and she was imploring up to the sun, and the sun was scowling down at her. And just like and it just was not happy with her. And behind her there was this dark figure with long black hair, and she was coming around me from behind me, and she was inside of me, and she was holding and wrapping me with this tenderness around me. And it was then I sort of recognized, like, who is that? What is that? And I thought, that's a mother figure. And so I think for me, it was a little bit different. I think it started to be from the dream space where I started to do these things with women, and then they were coming in with me. So much me going somewhere else. And I was very, very young when I was just making these circles and formations and experiences with women, and they kept teaching and informing me. And I also want to say that when I was quite young, I had a mentor who was 20 years older than me, and is still very much, she's in her late 80s, and she is always by my side still. Like with her, like we just did something recently and she said, I just feel so loved when I'm next to you because everybody's loving her for having loved me, you know. But she taught me a lot of things and we did work together. And it was there that I learned about women's empowerment work, and things started to roll. And I'm always going to thank her for, her name is Sandra Boston, for, and her teacher was Starhawk. So, you know, I've just that influence, having that older woman see me and then guide me and give me something that I could then serve the world with.
I hear that. Yeah, you know, if we look at the tarot, you have the Earth Mother, the Empress. And my understanding is when we reach puberty, we then need the Spirit Mother or the God Mother, you know, because we go through that individuation from the Earth Mother, and then we're looking for a woman who can be our mentor, you know. And that for the women out there that perhaps have not had children this life, you know, like Artemis with the many breasts, it may be well because they're going to play the role of a spiritual mother to more than one woman, you know, or that the woman that they will mentor is going to have such a huge legacy that they're going to need all of that, you know, nurturance. But thank you. I can't imagine becoming a mother at 17 and speaking to the, you know, that urge to end the suffering. You know, I've been suicidal many times, never acted upon it, but suicidal ideations many times. And that is something, it's so taboo. And I remember one of the women at my daughter's school taking her life, and my grief was, if only she had a red tent, maybe she wouldn't have, you know. That was my response. That was everything in my body said that's where she wasn't held, you know, because I see suicide as, you know, it's the tone black, and that we, as part of our human experience, we feel all the colours on a colour wheel. In fact, in our cycle, we're going to feel all the shades, all the colours in our month. And to acknowledge that there will be days when we feel black, and that it does take a village, like the saying, it takes a village not just to raise a child, but to get through life, you know. Yeah. So there's a few questions that I like to ask people on this show, because it is about how we navigate change. Let's speak to that. If there's a woman out there who is struggling, who is in crisis, knowing what you know now as wise women, as leaders in your communities and in the global community, what does your heart feel to speak to a woman who's in the depths of that suffering? DeAnna, would you like to share?
One of the things that has been a profound soother for me in all and any times of crisis was the realization that I can be my own mother, that I can mother the girl that I once was, that I can take the 3-year-old that I was torn out of her country of origin. I was born in Romania, and my family and I moved to Israel at 3, and I suddenly had no one that I knew, no recollection of anything. No one understood my language. I didn't understand the language that was spoken. I was completely alone and isolated, and the fact that my parents were there, they were struggling themselves immensely. So to take that 3-year-old in my arms and to hold her and to soothe her and to sing a lullaby to her.
Mm.
That's what I would invite any woman who is suffering to remember, that she herself has the great mother inside of her, as well as the ailing child.
Mm.
And that this can be a womb within a womb.
Mm. Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you. ALISA.
DeAnna, I have always loved listening to you. You know, the way that you've touched so many beings with your, the grace that comes from your words. So thank you for that. I think anyone who's just heard that received medicine. Thank you. Yeah. So we are all suffering. And if you are hearing us and you feel like this is you, I want you to know that you are not alone. You are not alone. And it is so important that you feel heard and seen and loved right where you are. Right where you are. It's okay if there's shame, if there's regret, if there's anger, if there's suffering, it's this feeling of worthlessness, that this is simply not true. That you are a beautiful, you are part of everything that is wondrous in this universe, and that the mystery and the unseen and the possibility is always having a heartbeat here. So find someone that can see you and hold you and be with you, reflect you. Maybe it's me right now. For you to believe just through this one moment, and to hang on, to hold on. Because in time, we are constantly in shift and change. You may be where you are right now, but this is the cyclical nature of things. It will shift. So hold on. And find, if you do not have a red tent where you are, make a red tent where you are. Because this will change your life. Even if you don't feel it's possible, some people just hang up a little red thing and welcome people in. Because the more we can be together, the more we're going to be stronger with everything we're facing right now. Bless you.
Thank you. Yeah. There's a lot to be said for creating your own red tent. You know, women take to the bed. That's a red tent. Cocooning, you know, when there's so much coming up from within and we just want to wrap ourselves, come back to the heart, go within. And all of the answers are in the darkness. We're taught by our culture to fear the dark, or that everything's love and light. But the answers are in the unseen, in the negative space, in the void. And the void is actually benevolent, that we can be cloaked in that soft, velvety darkness, that our ancestors are waiting for us in that darkness. All parts of ourselves are waiting in that darkness. And that I understand at the moment of death, you know, we're taught to look for the light, the tunnel of light. But if we've been okay practicing being in the darkness, whether that's in deep meditation or in a space of our own making, a sacred space where we step back from all the imposing thoughts and sensory overload to just go deep within ourselves, then that brings through a knowing of all truth, who we are and the nature of reality. And that's how we birth ourselves, by going into the darkness. So if you're feeling eclipsed by the dark, happy birthday. Yeah, it's like you are birthing yourself and you are beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lovely. Thank you.
I moved to say, when I hear you speak, I moved to say that in Hebrew, the word for darkness and the word for forgetting is the same. Chashecha is darkness and shichecha is forgetting. And it's the same word in different arrangements of the letters. And it is the forgetting of all we know, forgetting of all knowing, of all that we take for granted, of all that we think is true, of all of our convictions and beliefs that we forget and let go of when we enter the darkness and we meet the unknown at last, without all the knowings. We forget the knowings.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, I'm going to come because it's like this 3-part thing. And what's going here is like we said the red tent is womb space, and the sacred feminine is the place of the void, and the void is in like the yin yang. It is the place of that dark, and in that place all things are possible, and in that place we are all needing to have a relationship with the mystery, have a relationship with the unknown, have a relationship with this womb void sacred feminine place, that things are not seen, they're not known, and so therefore they can become, they can change and shift and become, and we need that right now. So make friends, make a holy space there, because it is a homecoming.
Beautiful. So on that, I mean, Yeshua said, when 2 or more are gathered in my name, I want to honor and harness the power of 3, the Trinity, and our gathering, which is powerful, along with all the other women that are listening to this, that we speak our prayers for the world. So we're just going to do a short intention visualization where we speak blessings or intentions from the heart for our global family. And then I'll open up the space to share, how people can get in touch with you and anything that you'd like to share with our audience. So just bringing the awareness within our heart, breathing into the heart, one hand on the womb, one hand on the heart. Or for the brothers that may be listening to this, one hand on your belly, one hand on your heart. Breathing in, calling back all aspects of the self. And just sending your heart light into the center of our virtual circle, meeting in that one heart. Touching hearts. Meeting in the Anima Mundi, the world soul that we're all a part of. The vision that I would like to seed at this new moon with my sisters here as witnesses, as midwives, holders of truth, is that we follow the calling back to living in sacred connection and communion with ourselves, with each other, and with the earth, and rediscover the magic of the elements, the creative elements that comprise our bodies and all things, knowing that it is through communion with the elements that we regulate our nervous system, that we find deep pleasure, that we become more available to love. I see a future where we are living in harmonic reverence with the cycles, coming together in community, sacred community practices that align with the wheels of the sun, the moon, the seasons, and the planets that initiate us through our chronological life stages. And that we relinquish, let go, and acknowledge all that keeps us in a separation from the truth of who we are. Who feels to speak their prayers of intent?
May we all know that we are each enough. May we each know we are enough. May we forgive ourselves. May we know that any other who is polarized as much as can be from us, we can see their humanity. May we reach womb to womb, heart to heart, knowing to knowing, to know that what is separate from us and different from us and opposite from us is really another face, another facet of the diamond we all are together. May we know that together we are whole, and each of us is needed for that whole to be complete.
So it is. ALISA.
Mm. I pray that in this moment, humanity opens the heart to the Sacred Mother in this place for us to recognize that the future that we want is here in every choice, in every way that we want to be. We begin in this moment. For us to believe in ourselves, in the wonder of this world and the earth, to be here, born at this moment in time, to not curse that, but to be in absolute wonder of the miracle of the witness and the participation that we are in collectively together. I pray that love prevails. Love is prevailing, that no matter what our future holds for us, that we never, ever veer from the place of the root of the love who each of us has been born to be. Blessed be.
Blessed be.
Blessed be. Yes.
So, before we hit record on this, ALISA mentioned the dismantling that she'd been going through. And that's certainly been a part of my menopausal initiation. I think that would be a whole other episode to speak to this. But I preface the invitation to share your offerings on the understanding that as we move through the mage into the crone, that there is a cloak of invisibility that happens. We do go underground. We're not, as available. And right now there is a glut of things coming at people, information overload. And a lot of it is about the feminine, the rise of the feminine, which is great. But that, how do people find you? Yeah, if they're so moved by this transmission that we've shared, is there something especially that you feel in this moment to say, I'm available to be of service to you in this way? This is an offering I'd like to share with you. Or not. It's an invitation, not an obligation. Alisa, do you have anything that comes to mind?
I would say it's so wonderful to be at this time of my life as a grandmother and to be with young people, and to be able to be stalwart in my years of holding and to be able to be there right now. I hope to be, my mother is 95, still living. So I hope to be here. And what I am presently available for is to help us unearth our indomitable spirits that are needed, that cannot be dominated or tamed. And that I'm working with people in decolonization as a white woman, retreats that are seldom, and it's very hard to find me right now, so I'm just going to give a link to direct be with me, but mostly individuals right now coming to my home and doing days of immersion inside of my red tent temple.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
How lucky they are. Thank you. So we'll put a link if you want to.
How lucky they are. Yes, how lucky they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
DeAnna, what does your heart feel to share in this moment?
What I'm finding myself more and more available is working with women across the globe on long distance, on Zoom like we are now, or on the phone, to allow us to find and create an alternative biography of love. That regardless of the biography that we had and injured us and pained us and left us wounded, we can create an alternative biography in which we were loved and accepted exactly the way we are. So that's what I am really flowingly from my heart enjoyed doing with women these days. And what I'd like to offer women is to have a link to click on to take them to a free gift of a red tent activation meditation in which you would go inside to remember, to awaken your cellular memories of having sat in a red tent in millennia ago, in memories that may not be your biographical memories but are your cellular memories. And may you always be remembering your essence and where you came from.
Yeah. And look, similarly, I'm moving more into the role of mentor, So I'm doing one-on-one coaching sessions with women and finding that rewarding, it's intimate. Yeah. I'm really wanting to do more in person as well. Like, my red tent facilitator training, all of my online courses. The cost of keeping them on platforms, I couldn't afford it. It's like as demand grew for online content, but I'm really stepping back from the digital. I feel allergic to social media and everything, and really wanting to work in person. And I've been working with men. I just ran a Grail retreat for men, which is basically a moon lodge for men during the darkest of winter. And they're meeting with the Dark Mother and confronting their fear of the Dark Mother, and how that injures relationship for men with the feminine within themselves as well as with their beloveds. So, yeah, I'm about to start another men's program, meeting the 7 faces of the God within, helping men like Isis helped Osiris, piecing together the aspects of the masculine. So that's, yeah, an
Beautiful.
unexpected new body of work that is, But I do want to do a shout out on the Lunar New Year, February 17 solar eclipse. I'm holding a global red tent. So it's, to bring women together for visioning for the future, but also to share prophetic dreams and intuitive messages and guidance women have been receiving at this time as the veils are thinning. So I'll put a link for that in the description. So this is one of my favorite conversations. I think I'll remember this on my deathbed, Yeah.
Wow.
Thank you. Thank you for joining me for this. The two of you have been in my heart in a way that it's beyond words. And we were lighting torches and part of something that connected us, even though we'd never actually, I hadn't physically met with you both. And thank you. Thanks for the work
Thank you,
that you've
Tanishka, for gathering us and weaving the dream and the space together for us to come and share sacred space with each other, warm space with each other. Thank you for the vision.
Bless you. Thanks.
And ALISA, thank you for your being and for your fierceness and for your visionary being throughout your life and the torch that you have been. Thank you.
This is the way that we stay inside of this place of gratitude with one another, that here, and so much around like competition with women and all of these things, that's like here in this sphere as you see us is this unbelievable, like you can't even see it, but this is like gratitude for each of us, but for each of you, and me knowing what you've brought forward, me knowing deep in my heart how grateful I am to each of you for having walked along, even though we haven't physically been in the same place, that we said yes to a vision in each our own ways that could hold and and change so many lives. So I also am very grateful. Uh, and also just, it takes a lot for me to kind of, DeAnna knows, she's invited me to things and I'm always like, I don't know, so like to be visible. But this is a time now for me, I think, to say, okay, I've held my work as the underground river. Many things were not brought forward because I wanted to keep them in a sacred way so that, that they weren't on social media. But now is a time to say, we exist. We have been living her story, and we love one another deeply.
Right.
And it's profound for you to see us together, because this is where we give our life force, and you can count on us.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Oh, heart food. Yeah. So because we've opened the space, we need to say farewell and thank you to those who joined us. So let's just take a moment to go within and say thank you to the Great Mother by all her names for showing up, speaking through us, and reaching through our transmission into the hearts of all who heard the call together. We say thank you to our ancestors, to the women who brought us into this world, who raised us up, often in great hardship and isolation. And we say thank you to every woman who has heeded the call for initiation, who has stepped into the sacred temples that we've created, because each has initiated us. It's always a two-way street. And thank you for every experience that brought us to this moment of shared and distilled wisdom. I open the space for you each to say whatever you feel moved to speak as we prepare to close this circle.
תודה לרחם הגדולה, תודה לאם הגדולה, שילדה אותנו מתוך גופה, שילדה אותנו באהבה, שילדה אותנו בחמלה, שילדה אותנו ברחמים. Gratitude to the Great Mother, who burst us forth from her womb, who burst us forth from her heart, who birthed us forth in compassion. May we serve you as your awakeners, as you awaken through us, through each and every woman on this planet that remembers you, that opens up to you, is another cell of your body that awakens to the great consciousness of the Great Mother.
I close this time thanking those that we can no longer see in the ancestor place that brought us to this moment also, and all the life force they gave, all the teachers that you cannot see here, all the women who stood for the movement and for the red tents, all the women who contributed, all the women who also have so much vision and love in the places that we're moving right now. And I give thanks to ourselves that when we are no longer here, that you will carry forward this flame, this torch, this love for the places of women, the temples of women, the sacredness of women, the place that we can help heal our world. Thank you all for your part in this vision. Blessings.
Blessings.
Blessed be.
Beautiful. May the circle be open, but never broken.
Merry meet and merry part and merry meet again.
Blessed be.
Blessed be.
It's been an honor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. It is done. It is done. It is done. To those of you who joined us, thank you. If this moved you, then I invite you to check out the conversations with some of the other incredible wisdom keepers and share this conversation as your heart feels moved to. We'll see you next time in the red tent. Thanks so much for being here. Bless you both.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of Sisters of the Moon. To receive a notification when it's time to meet again, click the button to subscribe, and we'll see you here next time we gather in the Moon Lodge. Until then, blessed be your thoughts, words, and deeds. under the guiding light of Grandmother Moon.